Time is on our side, Darlie Routier. It's not on your side. It's on our side. You remember that.
It's on my side. Yes, it is. Now you always say that you want to be free, but you come running back. You come running back. You always say that you want to be free.
Oh, this woman can be a clown sometimes. For someone that's a nurse, her lack of common sense kind of blows me away. Gorsuch, and the misspelling of the name is not a big deal, but the reason I know his name and how it's spelled properly is because I've seen it a lot when I read the transcripts. Gorsuch. I had another supporter, Stephanie Hopkins. She's a big-time supporter. She runs the Free Darlie YouTube page. Got hundreds of thousands of views. After going to visit with Darlie, her and I had a conversation about the man in the yard. And she thought that Gorsuch was the first responding officer. I had to let her know, no, that's not him. And she had been to see Darlie. She's been to hang out with her family, and they don't know these simple little details. So it makes you wonder what the big details are that they miss. So it just takes a little research, a very few minutes, to show that these people are wrong. It's not hard. It's too easy. I've only been looking at this post right at this point right now for about 9 minutes. And I've already went to the transcripts to show exactly where she's wrong here. It says, Gorsuch, the neighbor, was certain about the time on his clock. But that was 6 minutes after Waddell officially arrived. So who did Waddell meet? She says, I do not think it was the intruder. I just think someone's story doesn't line up. Waddell says his gun was drawn, but Darren doesn't report that. Gorsuch is the neighbor that lives on the side across from the Routier house. He got back home around 2 o'clock. He says in between 1:45 and 2 o'clock, around that time. He doesn't give an exact time. He does say that on his way home, he drives past the Lakeview Baptist Church and sees Waddell's. He doesn't know it's Waddell, but he sees the Rowlett police officer car sitting there. So it takes him another 2 minutes to get home. In that area of 2 minutes. Then, when he parks his truck, which you can see his truck in some of the videos that are out there, it's a red Nissan, 85 Nissan. King cab. So he gets out of his truck and he kind of just stands there for maybe 4 or 5 minutes. Then he goes upstairs, gets ready for bed. His window's open. They don't like the air conditioner, so he can hear what's happening. Then they see the lights of Officer Waddell pulling up. He also describes Officer Waddell drawing his gun and walking back in the house with Darren. Previously, they had asked, did you know them? And he said, well, they were kind of neighbors, blah, blah, blah. But over the years that he had lived there, Darren and them had lived there, he had 4 or 5 conversations with Darren and maybe one with Darlie. And he knew the boys really well. He actually literally says on the stand, I know him by sight. So when he looks out that window, he knows it's Darren. He knows it's Waddell. right? But he does not. This is not like the medical examiner actually said Damon can only live a maximum of 9 minutes. No. That's another supporter fib. On this one, he does not give an exact time. Okay, so give us your best estimate as to when you got upstairs into the bedroom. The estimate of time was after 2 o'clock to 10 to 2 after. So he's given an estimate of the time. She said he's sure about the time. But he definitely gives an estimate. It's like, when they were trying to give us that 9-minute maximum Damon could have lived, that medical examiner on the stand, when asked how long he could have lived, they tried to suggest 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes. Her answer was, you can't tell. And the supporters run with that and say, oh no, she said he only lived now. But here he says, give your best estimate. And Gorsuch's answer is the estimate. It's the estimate of time. Now, I'm going to check this out. But so far, he's given an estimate. I want to double check before I run my mouth. Then he asked again right here, about what time would it have been when you tried to go to sleep? Again, probably 10 after or 15 after 2. Somewhere in that vicinity. That doesn't sound like somebody that's certain of an exact time. Does it, Danelle? Okay, did something wake you up soon after that? Yes. Okay, what time was it that you were awakened? The first time I was awoken, I really didn't know. I didn't look at the clock. It didn't break my sleep completely. I felt something, a noise of some kind, did wake me. He didn't even know the noise that he heard. Something just kind of jarred him in the dark, and he popped awake. He only hears it once. And I don't know what time it was. It was sometime after I tried to go to sleep, after I did go to sleep, and it woke me. A short time thereafter, I was awoken again. This time it was a full awakening. What woke me at that time was Darren Routier running from the front of the house down the sidewalk yelling that someone had stabbed my children. Or my kids and my wife. Okay, someone had stabbed my children, yes. He knows who Darren is, and he saw him with Darren at the fountain, even with the fountain. Blue jeans. I saw a policeman come up the bank. As I leaned up in bed, I could look out the window and see a pretty good picture. Even Gorsuch doesn't mention seeing the gun, but that doesn't mean see Darren come back out with Waddell shortly after and go over to Karen. He sees Darren beating on the Neal's door, which they testified to. He has a great description of the scene. He saw the whole thing. Shortly thereafter, a short period of time. Nothing in here says he was certain of the exact time. And on another note, I'm doing a quick edit here. Because I had a thought while I was editing this. I've had this thought before, but, there's an issue with the supporters claiming, Darren didn't mention Waddell pulling his gun. And Gorsuch doesn't mention Waddell pulling his gun. So they say that Waddell's lying because, Darren didn't say that, and Gorsuch didn't say that. Gorsuch didn't see it. And Darren didn't say it. The defense had the opportunity, to ask Darren, did he draw his gun on you? And Darren could have said no. Same thing with Officer Waddell. Same thing with Waddell on the stand. They could have asked him. He said he drew his gun, but they didn't. The defense didn't argue that. The defense never said, "Well, did you draw your gun or not?" Darren says you didn't. Mr. Gorsuch says he didn't. He didn't say. I didn't see him draw his gun because he wasn't asked that. They weren't asked this by the defense, which is just why wouldn't they ask? Just think about that for a little bit. Mr. Shook asks, so it's clear were you able to determine what time it was when you woke up with Darren yelling? His answer was approximately 2:40. I have a clock and an alarm clock beside the bed, and as I recall, it was around 2:40. Okay, did you look at the clock when you woke up? Yes. At 2:40 in the morning? Yes. But he still says around and approximately. Actually, William Gorsuch's testimony is a very good read as far as the events that took place at 5801 Eagle Drive on June 6, 1996, because William Gorsuch had nothing to lose, nothing to lie about, nothing to hide. He told what he saw, and he was right in the middle of the crime scene. He gave her proxy. He didn't say, nope, it was this time. Nope, not sure about it. I don't know where she gets Gorsuch, the neighbor, was certain about the time on his clock when he says, about this time, approximately, I think so. But to the person that doesn't know to know, and they read this, they're like, damn, you mean the neighbor looked at his clock and he knew exactly what time it was and it doesn't match up by 6 minutes? Because that's not the case. This woman is a fucking liar. She is. The simplest things. She can't get around Gorsuch's testimony. She can't character assassinate him as a bad forensic a scientist or a bad police officer. She can't do anything to discredit him. Nothing. There's no way that she can say, he wasn't really a neighbor. Like she does with Jim Cron. She can't say, he had a drinking problem, what she does with Lynch. And she can't say, he was wrong in other cases at Tom Bell. Well, you don't even know what spatter is. There's nothing that she can do to discredit this man's character. If you really want to learn a lot about that scene that night, I'm telling you, William Gorsuch is some very good testimony. Now, granted, Gorsuch, she says, I do not think it was the intruder. I just think some of the story doesn't line up. Waddell says his gun was drawn, but Darren doesn't report it. No, Darren didn't report it. He wasn't asked. He didn't report it. Gorsuch didn't say anything about a gun either. But he wasn't asked. Let's move on. And to reinforce my claim, the police officers took it. They're talking about Drake. That's where Karen said they took the baby from and gave it to Karen. Okay, and did they took it out of the residence and then gave it to Karen. Is that right? That's correct. Okay, eventually, did you and your wife take custody of the baby sometime during that morning? Yes, we did. Okay, and in fact, did you all care for the baby later on through the day? Answer, yes, we did. How long did you have the baby there? We had the baby from around 11 a.m. until 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Did the police ever get anyone to help them retrieve the Routiers' dog from the house? But yeah, and then Karen. But the thing is, they even helped. They were even trying to help Darlie and Darren, with Drake while they dealt with this. Because they were believing her story, apparently. Talking about when Karen went into the house. Okay, did she go into there by herself or was she escorted? She was escorted. How many police officers? 2. And how long were they in there? Minutes. A very few minutes. He's not giving an exact time. Then Mr. Doug Mulder is back on his same tactics that he used with the police officers on the scene. We know, as true crimers, as people who study lots of different crime scenes, that notes they don't even need notes. It's the final report that matters. So if the final report that they write is not correct, the notes, you can write them down on the scene and just use it as a reminder for your full report on the scene. Then you take the notes and throw them away. Or you don't have to write them down at all. You can be on the scene and remember it correctly, what happened, and write down what you remember. If what you remember doesn't correspond with your report, then you have a problem. But Mulder wants to go off on that. He wants to put this seed into the jury's mind. Well, they weren't taking notes, so they must not have knew what they were doing. Mr. Douglas Mulder says, yes, sir, Mr. Is it Gorsuch? Yes, it is. Mr. Gorsuch, just a thing or two. Gosh, have you made any notes? No, I have not. You don't need to make any notes about this? No, it was pretty well fixed in my head whenever I saw it. When was the first time you were contacted by police? That morning, it was approximately 7 a.m. You remember who the police officer was? Didn't know who he was, can't recall. Now here he speaks of being interviewed by a Rowlett police officer. He doesn't know who it was, but it says he interviewed both my wife and I. And here goes Mulder again. He tried to get him with this one, but it backfired on him. Okay, I assume he took notes. Yes, he did. Would you recognize him if you were to see him again? Probably not. Okay, did you notice what he was writing down? No, I did not pay attention to what he was writing. That's a dumb question. Did he seem to be taking voluminous notes? Notes of volume. Or was he noting things appropriately? I felt he was noting things appropriately. Probably yes. But you say you saw him making some notes as you went along. Yes. 15, 20 minutes. Probably. See, he's never given a certain time on any of it. To get Gorsuch to pinpoint the time and say give an exact time, which is the same thing that was done to Parchment when she was on the stand with Mosty. Oh, so it was 5 minutes that Damon could have lived? 6 minutes? 7 maybe? They tried to get them to give an approximate time, and you can't. You can't tell. So it says, question from Doug Mulder. Well, now, I kind of got lost in the dialogue there. But best as I recall, you had to go to work and you left the office, and I think you left at 1:25, called your wife again, as you explained to us why, and you made it home. I said, I think you said you were home. I think the prosecutor said 1:50 and you said 1:45. But I showed you earlier that he said between 1:45 and 2. All right? And then he says between 1:45 and 50. 1:50, that's correct. What awakened you the second time? Darren yelling. Then you looked at the clock. Okay, sometimes I'll set my clock a little bit fast so that hopefully I get where I'm supposed to be on time. Did you set yours right? Yes, I do. Okay, now he does say, he's pretty sure it is 2:40. All right? 2:40 a.m. when he sees Darren running out of the house. Darlie placed the call to 911 at 2:31 a.m. That was just after the attack, which probably only took, if it was an intruder, a few minutes. Not long, they don't hang out long. So at 2:31, she had just chased an intruder out of the house. Right? Gorsuch is up in his room. Says he hears a noise. The first time, then he tried to drift back to sleep, and he woke up, says it was 2:40. 2:40, the 9 minutes that's in there, and they're holding Gorsuch 100% accountable for it being the 2:40. And we all know that clocks, it might say 2:40 at this house or 2:40 in this room, but you go downstairs to another clock, it could be 2:41, 2:42, 2:39. You could be off by give or take a few. And again, I didn't look at my clock at that point. All right, from that point forward, I didn't pay any attention to time. I said, I think he might have, right? Okay, now I want to make sure you understand this officer who parked over here. The second officer to arrive, made it into the house, the back of the house. I think he might have. I don't know for sure. Again, I was in the process of going down my stairs. Whenever I came out the door, this car had come from the west and was being stopped by the two police officers. There's another officer that had arrived down beyond Eagle Drive there, down below. These two officers, I believe, the two had stopped the car. Again, which two officers they are, I don't know. They were in blue uniforms. Yeah, and he stopped him. All right. Yeah. Now he makes it clear that he saw that the officers did stop a car and check some people. This is where back in the day they always said that Chad Patterson's son had a cutlass. I always wondered where that exactly came from. Now I know. I mean, I knew it. It didn't ring out to me, but he's the only one that gives a description of any type of car that looked funny that night. And he says it was a Cutlass. It was a dark car of some type. It looked like a Cutlass with that body style. It was an older, late model car, 85 or 86, something like that. Cutlass actually, their cars started to get a little smaller in 85, 86 from the big body Cutlass. 85, 86 would be an Olds Cutlass Calais, right? This is an Olds 85 Olds Calais, the Calais Supreme, the Cutlass Supreme, which is what he's describing there, because in 85, the bigger Cutlasses that they were fanning out that year were official pace cars. They were the big ones for the Indy 500, and they phased out that year. But you had the smaller Cutlass Calais. That's what I think. I would probably say it was a smaller body style, like a Cutlass. Now, the people that know cars back in the day know that the Cutlasses had the mid-size Cutlass, the regular Cutlass, and then the smaller Cutlass Calais. Again, I wasn't looking at the clock. I don't know. What would you imagine? Yeah, and they're trying to get him to guesstimate a time. They show them he shows them stopping the four people. He never gives a direct time. Never. Playing with his timeline like that.